everyone, and welcome to China EVs and More, where my co-host Lei and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the China EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. If you enjoy this room, please help us get the word out to other enthusiasts, and of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Li. I am the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Good morning, Lei. Can you please introduce yourself?
Well, good morning to a clogged up Tu this time.
Yeah, you hear me, huh?
Yes. I hope you're okay. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And this is episode number 110.
Racking them up. We're racking them up.
It's the last day of March and last day of the quarter. I can feel the buzz, and the Chinese word is 卷, the involution.
That's an appropriate word, Joanne, right?
Leading up to the Shanghai Auto Show, because it seems that every day there's been something going on. I don't know if you feel that way, but that's how I feel.
I don't know about you, Lei, but I've gotten pinged by my journal contacts. Hey, do you know any agencies that can fast track visas? I'm having problems. So the foreign journalists that have not been to China, it sounds like a disproportionate number of them are still going to have problems getting in and won't be making, the ones I know, aren't going to be making the show, unfortunately. So
I've been getting requests like, do you know good comms agencies for this company that are trying to expand into China, stuff like that. So
yeah, so business is good, although on the surface, it would seem that China is still trying to combat this price war, but the IRA is supposed to be finalizing its language on who and what and when will receive those subsidies, right on the heels of CATL and Tesla being rumored to open a factory in Texas using Ford's playbook with CATL.
Blueprint. And yeah, and this is supposed to be also the last day that the rear-wheel drive of the Model 3 that gets the complete $7,500.
Right.
Supposedly, because that new language is coming out today, right? So I listed in the topics, the China Development Forum that was a few days back. There's been the Bora Forum. This weekend is the all-important China EV 100 Forum. So there's been a lot going on. We had Faraday Future finally SOPing with an asterisk.
I don't know what that was. I have no idea what that was.
It was pushed off by the employee. So anyways, we heard earnings from BYD, GAC Group, Great Wall Motor. We just heard about Huawei this morning. I tweeted some stuff on that. Maybe we can discuss a little bit of that. And then there's been talks of pushing back the China 6B emission standards to allow kind of a grace period so that these OEMs can get rid of the inventory.
They're going to end up giving them away for free or dumping them on the foreign markets.
Well, in the GAC Group earnings conference.
Can you describe a little bit to the audience what exactly this is?
Which one? The China 6?
The emissions, the restriction.
Yeah, so there's these two sets of emission standards, China 6A and 6B. 6A went into effect July 1st, 2020, and 6B kicks in 4 months, July 1st of this year, which is basically have more stringent requirements on the emissions of nitrogen oxide, particulate matter.
Yeah, I think generally we can say that the requirements for running clean are tighter, which makes the current set of ICE engines not eligible, or what's the right way to say this? Not in compliance.
Not in compliance, right. So that's why you've seen in the price war a lot of steep discounts on ICEs is the attempt to get rid of the inventory. And in the words of Zheng Qinghong, the chairman of GSE Group on their earnings call, he said, it's basically if you don't reduce prices, if they don't sell, then they become scrap metal.
Yeah, they instantly become excess and obsolescence.
Yeah, so I think over the last few days, CADA, the China Automobile Dealers Association, similar to the NADA here in the US, has been meeting with some of the representatives of OEMs and lobbying for the delay of that China 6B emission standards. And the request is to delay for a year. And in one of their meetings, the OEMs shared that they have 2 million vehicles sitting in inventory of these ICE vehicles that are, I believe, 6A. So they can still be sold, but they're facing issues of clearing them out.
So let me add some color to that from an operations standpoint. So in general, so when I worked at GM, there was an 8:30 schedule, and that was the 12-week planning schedule. And then they had the I want to say, and I'm old, so I forget the exact number, but I want to say the 8:11 schedule. And that was the monthly shipping schedule. The planning schedule gave the suppliers, okay, buy material for the next 12 weeks at this volume. And it's going to come in. Week 1 was always the current week, and then 12 weeks out. And so what they would do is, in order to, the planning schedule would basically allow the supplier or authorize the supplier to purchase the raw materials and guarantee somewhat that they would be whole in case any orders were changed. And then the 811 schedule, and I'm not sure that 811 is right, but that's not the important name anyways. The 811 schedule would say, okay, we told you on the planning schedule that we needed in week 5, 100 of these parts, part number X. Now, the weekly shipping schedule says we need 25 on Tuesday, we need 50 on Wednesday, and we need 25 on Thursday. So that's how that works. And on the supply agreements, they normally have anything outside of 30 days, anything outside of 90 days. We, as the customer, the OEM, we don't have any liability on. So we give you this planning schedule for planning purposes. We're only going to pay for what is on our shipping schedule or whatever, right? Depending on, because suppliers, sometimes they have those 30-day. And so this is where, okay, we have these parts, and what exacerbated it was the price war and the economic downturn, because they had these productions scheduled and they thought they could sell them, and then demand fell off a cliff. And so that's kind of sort of what we're seeing here, right? A glut of product that was already in the pipeline that ended up being final goods. So nothing they can do about, putting that genie back in the bottle, because they're already built, right?
I think the reality is whether they meet the 6A or 6B or not, they are losing competitive advantage to the NEVs. That is the reality. Forget about these new emissions policies, whether they're there or not, right? And if you look at what Wang Chuanfu mentioned in the earnings, is that he expects the penetration of NEVs this year to be around 40 to 45%. And at certain month, it could be as high as 50%. So half the vehicles sold are NEVs. And if we look at the volumes, the expected volume increase in NEVs last year was 6.8 million. This year, let's say 9 million. Let's be conservative. That's over 2 million units. And where do you get those 2 million units? It's from the loss of the 2 million units of ICEs. I think that's about the math that you can do, because China's car market is no longer a first-time buyer market. It's the people trading up. It's about customer retention. And their next vehicle purchases are more than likely to be NEVs.
And Lei, we should dedicate at least one episode to the used car market and the volatility of pricing on that side
Yeah.
at some point in time too.
Yeah,
So-
and I saw a clip of Wang Chuanfu dunking on some of the legacy premium brands, and he's saying in that clip, these premium brands are selling a few hundred units of their EVs a month at 20-30% off. Not officially, but the deal level. And he's like, why bother selling them anyways? So yeah. And
well, he's looking at it like he can't wait till consolidation occurs because they're not really fighting anybody. I think they're kind of above the fray. And so he's just waiting for the weaker players to get got. And, Innovate is one of them. So
yeah,
we got official word that they are closing their doors. So
I mean, maybe WM Motor we mentioned a lot on the show, but over the last 2.5 years or 2+ years that we talked, how many times did we mention Innovate? Probably you can count by our fingers, handful of times. That shows, right?
Well, Lei, remember when we first started talking and doing this podcast, I'd sent you a pitch deck from Innovate.
Innovate, yeah.
And so for, since we've been doing this podcast, they've been trying to raise capital.
The funny thing is, like WM Motor, Innovate is their not founders, but their management are from, I will call them the SAIC VW gang. And these are traditional automotive people, and it hasn't worked out. Similar to WM Motor, Freeman, he's from the traditional.
What we're going to find is that Freeman had an issue with Geely, which really complicated his ability to maneuver.
Yeah.
And you and I know the background story on that, but once that comes out, it'll come out. But
yeah,
so WM is definitely on a death watch, but
they're done.
Well, our friend Daniel asked me if WM had gotten an injection of funding. I didn't hear that, but I don't think it's helpful.
That is supposed to be from the Apollo FMG.
Yes.
They're still hashing out the details, but I don't know where that's going, if anywhere at all.
And it's the same pair of pants, just different pockets. It's not new capital.
Yeah. And going back to BYD a little bit. So BYD, Wang Chuanfu, he said the target is to double sales, so 3.6 million. And that includes 800,000 export. It's a huge number, I think.
China exported around 2 million units last year, I want to say.
Yeah. Well, total autos was close to 3 million.
Yeah, okay.
So I think 700,000 roughly were NEVs. So BYD wants to do 800,000 this year.
And the best part about BYD is that they are shipping currently to over 35 countries.
Mexico.
Yeah, and they are leading, within 6-8 months of entering a market, they're leading like Israel, they're leading in certain segments.
And he did say that the US is currently not they're not looking to enter the US market for now.
That means before 2025, basically.
Yeah.
The other thing too, Lei, is what do you think he's thinking about CATL getting that double whammy?
Oh, I don't know. I think he's
I think he's a little upset.
Yeah. It's
I think missed opportunity. I think, because CATL, all they had to do was sit back because Ford basically lobbied on their behalf, and then Tesla just came right behind and said, "Hey, we want the same thing. We want the same thing. I'll have what he's having."
So just to give an idea of the scale that BYD, the 3.6 million total, including export. So domestically, that would be 2.8 million. 2.8 million would rank them into the top 10 globally. And he did say number one in China, meaning FAW Volkswagen is the number one standalone manufacturer. I think they sold more than 2 million last year in China.
Right.
So that's where we're looking at.
And if you combine SAIC and FAW, they're well over 3 million.
Sure.
For Volkswagen is.
Yeah, but that includes the joint ventures.
Yes.
Yeah. So big ambitions.
But they're the only one currently that is the machine that continues to run. They have small hiccups, but they just seem to run them over. Whereas even Tesla has major challenges and they make aggressive moves to try to remedy those. And it just seems like BYD is the new Toyota. They just get things done.
It just seems I was talking about this buzz. So every day or probably every other day, you will see multiple models being revealed or launched. Let's say the Denza N8, right? I tweeted that the N7 was just revealed, and now they come out with the N8, and then the fashion brand, the what was that code on that fashion brand 2316?
Yeah.
Right, whatever that is, the Yangwang, right? Yeah, and then you look at the legacies, they're just quiet. So
Well, I expect at least 2 or 3 of them to try to make big announcements in about 15 days. Whether their products will really resonate is going to be the question. And you can expect that there's going to be product launches from the folks that we talk about on a regular basis and some of the newbies. So
yeah, I think it would good. It would be good for these global CEOs really to be the Martin Winterkorns that look at all of these Chinese EVs personally, walk the show and see what they're stacked up against, right? I think that will shock them to say the least.
yeah.
I know that Oliver Zipsa and Ola they were here for the CDF, but that was more governmental PR, relations type of trip. So they'll come, spend some time and checking out the China vibe, right? Which I'm looking forward to as well, because you as well, but probably me more than you, because I haven't been back for 39 months.
That's a lifetime, buddy. Your mouth is going to water because of the food, and you're going to be like,
Yeah, well,
it's like, it's going to be different for you, but it's going to be heartwarming, but also like a little abrupt, I think.
yeah, everything, everywhere, all at once, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I need to balance out the FOMO a little bit because, as you know, we've been invited to places to go visit people and things and companies, and we need to balance that with just meeting people that we haven't talked to or seen in a while, friends. And, so for you and me, it's as much personal as it is professional. So I'm excited.
It's almost like a homecoming in a way, right? Because I mean, I've been looking at the market from the sidelines basically for this much time, and it's important to be inside it, to feel it, to understand it.
And I'm going to be a hater for a second because there have been a lot of new China so-called experts that have popped out of the woodwork. And, it's not that they want to inform, it's that they come off so confident, but they don't know. Like they have no idea. A lot of it's parroting. Likely a lot of it is parroting you and I. And so it is what it is. Because I mean, we just do, right? Because we're nerds anyways. We want to see the things. We want to drive the things. We want to talk to those people. And so it is what it is.
To be frank, we don't know. We try to infer. We try to speculate. We try to understand all this time as well. So,
yeah. And, one of those things happened yesterday is XPeng's NGP event in Shanghai. So
yeah, they're finally rolling out the city NGP for the Shanghai market.
So let me ask you, Lei, would you characterize this NGP launch as equivalent to Tesla's FSD, which is not available in China?
I would say that the X NGP that they're just announced, including parts of it saying that they don't need the HD Max, right? We talked about that last episode. These type of things. Yeah, that's basically the FSD, the X NGP, but it's the same functions. It's trying to do point-to-point assisted driving. So,
but in China, the there is not going to be a lot of wiggle room for interpretation on where, when, how the ADAS systems can be utilized. And there's not going to be a lot of social media posts that try to glamorize the I don't think the OEMs want that. The OEMs don't want that. I don't think there's an opinion about that. The OEMs don't want that. You also don't see that from many Tesla owners or Tesla itself in China.
It's more of these official media test drives, these videos that are put out there, rather than the kind of the videos we see here on social media. So
they're very, very curated. So
anyway, just want to point out a caveat on the BYD earnings. 16 billion, right? 500% growth, but they got over 10 billion RMB in NEV subsidies in 2022. So for 2023 and beyond, we have to look at that part of the finances and see how they do. Though revenues are going to go up anyways because they're selling more vehicles, right?
And their operating costs per vehicle should be reduced because they're selling more vehicles.
Yeah.
Unless we look at their CapEx and see that they are still investing in cell manufacturing, R&D, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, so 16 billion. I think Great Wall Motor and GAC Group, their net profit was about 8 billion, so half as much.
We should note, and I'm jumping around a little bit, the BYD revenue numbers were just out of this world. The net income numbers were ridiculous.
Yeah, 2022, it's a special year. It's a special year.
And, it just points back to if there are any countries, any OEMs, any EV startups that are still taking for granted or under, what's the right word? I have my head is cloudy today. Underestimating BYD's capabilities, they better just do their homework or just listen to us. Do not do that. Now, I will say that BYD has challenges ahead of itself because it's launching 2 new brands. It's entered 35 markets, as I said. So there will be challenges. I'm not saying that they're going to hit home runs in every single market. I'm not saying that every single product is going to be successful. But despite those challenges, again, they just seem to shake it off and keep moving forward. And so these amazing targets, they just keep achieving them. So 2023 is going to be a telling year because weaker players will shake out, which will likely strengthen BYD. Tesla, it's still unknown. If they get that Model 3 refresh out in the China market, let's see how their numbers shake out later this year. And there's a couple other EV manufacturers that I think towards the end of this year should see some upside as well. But again, it's clearly globally going to be a 2-man race. So
yeah, as I say, when you're at the top, it's hard to go higher. And to put this into perspective, the 3.6 million is roughly the entire NEV sold in China in 2021. So that's also mind-boggling. Just 2 years ago.
And one thing I saw on Twitter today is Lotus started shipping its or delivering its Electra.
Yeah, right. The huge event that they organized with the Clive Chapman attending and Jensen Button, right, all in the crowd.
And there's been some effusive praise for the Polestar 3 from Western media. So we could see Geely indirectly competing head to head with 2 great products potentially.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Let me think about this for 5 seconds. I think I would get the Electra, not the Polestar 3.
Well, but the Polestar 3 is made in America next year.
It will be, and China.
So, yeah, I think Electra is obviously addressing the Chinese market first because it's produced in Wuhan, right?
Wuhan, yeah. And we said that it's separate factories. Polestar 3 is a separate factory, but in Wuhan. and then the Electra is in Wuhan, but at a different factory.
Yeah, Electra is in Wuhan. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I'm wondering if the Robo 1 is going to be built off the same line as the Lotus.
We don't know. And it's
So Jidu has actually been pretty quiet. We should ping our friend. So
yeah, we should. So Huawei, right? Huawei, I tweeted about their intelligent vehicle business was about 2.1 billion last year, a very infinitesimal amount compared to their 600 some billion renminbi in their entire business. And then I think they, the chairman, the founder, Ren Zhengfei, sent an internal letter, basically saying again, Huawei does not intend to manufacture cars or produce cars, but rather being a value-added supplier. And he wants these brands to stop abusing using the Huawei brand. So one example would be the Ito changing their name to Huawei, right? Their promotional marketing materials changed from Ito to Huawei. So I think that probably will be stopped.
well, I don't know if Ito sells the car any other way.
And interesting enough that Meng Wanzhou, she's going to become the new rotating chairwoman tomorrow from her current position. So it's
they're not the same at all, but I equate Foxconn and Huawei in similar situations because they rely on this customer to generate sales in order for their product.
Yeah, part of what happened last year, maybe for a few years now, is they had to increase a lot of R&D on the products for sanctioned. You know what I'm saying? That kind of affected their profitability. And then I think in the automotive business, I think it's worth to point out that they have 3 business models. One as just a simply tier 1 supplier. 2 as the Huawei Inside, so with that HI sign. So that's with ArcFox and Avatar. And then the third business model is the Huawei Select, which is Ceres, the ITOs, which means that they're deep into this development and process. And they are also working with Chery, JAC on upcoming Huawei Select models. So it's as close to manufacturing cars to actually without manufacturing cars. So that's the way to put it.
The question becomes, whose arm are they going to twist from the foreign automakers into China market to utilize Huawei Select? That's the only way it really truly gets legitimized. Otherwise, it's China for China.
Yeah, it's also interesting whether Harmony OS whether they will go into any foreign brands. I don't know if they already are or they plan to, but
well, you know that there's discussions behind the scenes, and the OEMs, all of the OEMs are like kicking the tires. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. You know, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But will there be a foreign OEM that's desperate enough because they're losing sales or they're not able to build out their in-house version of an operating system, in order to swap something in really quickly? The desperate times, right?
And now with that Meizu and Lincoln Co. collab with the Fly Me Auto, I'm hearing that a lot of the chatter is that this is appearing to be one of the best systems out there now. And it's how interesting that Geely has integrated this Meizu acquisition into the automotive. And it was rare, again, I tweeted that it was rare for Chairman Eric Lee to talk about this at the beginning of a launch event. So that shows how important this strategic route is for Geely, how to integrate smartphones with the car business. And NIO, right? NIO is launching theirs supposedly in Q3.
NIO also launched version 3 of their swap station. Goes from 5 to 4, 6 minutes to 5 minutes or something like that. Holds many more batteries. And so there are a lot of Westerners that still think that swapping stations are a complete waste of money. They are burning money effectively.
Yeah.
I think that misses the point, though, because the China market is unique. And if you're only looking at the European market as an entry point, then you're not looking at this the right way. So
I think NIO is really preparing and anticipating once they launch their other brands, the what is it, Firefly, right? Or Alps, that they expect these new power swap stations to come into play. And the only thing I can think of is what Tesla went through with the superchargers. Whether you have the chickens first or the eggs first, right? This is the thing that's going on, and I think NIO is making that huge bet.
and we have to remember that just this week, was it Feifang? They launched the F7
F7, right?
with a optional swappable battery.
Right. Leasing, the battery leasing, right?
Yeah. So China is all in on swapping. So maybe it doesn't work in the rest of the world, but that doesn't mean it won't work in China.
Geely has the Levan brand with the battery swappable.
Have you heard anything about like how many stations and stuff? I've not been able to learn any more about that stuff.
Well, there were some numbers thrown out last year, I believe, but I don't remember the exact numbers. In the thousands. That I'm sure.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, Lei, the swapping station, will get a chance, I'm certain, in Shanghai to try it out. It's pretty cool.
You know where I used to work near Sunnington? There's one swap station being built. I watched it being built every day to and from work. I don't know what happened to that one. I have to go and check it out, whether if it's still there.
So, where in Sanlitun?
It's near the Capitol Club at the corner of that T intersection going down to Sunnington. So
I'm sure it was being built, but the Intercon where Gongti, Beilu, and that side street where the Intercon is and Bookworm used to be,
yep.
They were building a subway stop there. And so you're going to be amazed at the difference in the 3 years since you've been gone. You're going to be like, wow, what is going on? So I'm anxious to see. I might be doing something with the British Chamber, or we might be doing something with the British Chamber of Commerce in Beijing with an event. So for the folks that are listening in China, in Beijing or Shanghai, Lei and I are going to be hosting a happy hour sometime. We need to figure out that date in Shanghai before media days, I think. And then I'll be in Beijing the week after the auto show for some meetings with clients, do some visits, but also hopefully have one or two events as well, hosting one maybe, and then being a part of one or two as well. And so, yeah, I'm excited.
I'm very anxious.
If I can be very honest with you, Lei, whenever I go to the United States and then fly back to China, I never got super excited, but I'm pretty excited this time around. So maybe it's because I know I can get back on a plane to the United States. But because for the longest time, couldn't think of it like that. But anything else?
No, I mean just the FF1991 is I don't know. I mean YT, he said there was 9 years of suffocation. So, and I don't know whether that'll get better.
For those that are wondering, SOP means start of production. So that is typically when job number 1 rolls off the line, meaning that the first production vehicle that can be sold and used and driven by a customer. Before that, they do have vehicles that come off the line, but those are pilots, those are alphas and betas, and they're not saleable because they have parts that are from prototype parts that are hand built. So when you have job 1, everything comes off production tooling, and the software and the hardware is all golden mastered and completed. And so your my idea of job 1 or start production was a lot different than that picture shows.
Yeah, I said FF has just redefined what SOP is. And I'll be honest with you, I have a few friends there working there. I know, understanding where YT came from the TV days. this is not what I expected. And to be honest with you, I'm very disappointed.
This is not what he expected either.
I mean, this is what they showed with the SOP. When you understand what SOP means in the industry as you described. So I am not very happy, to be honest, that they presented this SOP the way they did. What the heck?
Yeah, this is
Which does not add any credibility at all. And I don't know why this hasn't been more reported. What is this?
I think there's just very little expectation for Faraday. And so this is consistent with what we've been seeing from them for the last few years.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, these companies like a WM and a Faraday, writing a $500 million check to them is throwing good money after bad, because they've not shown that they can design, engineer, build products that people want. And so I don't know.
Yeah, I think really YT his really dream is being a Chinese in the US and trying to prove that he can make this, this very pinnacle position as top of the industry model and this business thrive. I think that's what he wants to prove.
Right. Yeah. I still have a couple, and you do too, people that work there, but they kind of ignore me because they know I'm going to ask tough questions. But I don't have anything else. Actually, let me look at my newsletter. I think that it's notable that Tesla again slashed prices, but this time in the UK by 4,200 pounds. So they're still playing with that lever. I think oh my goodness, not Li Bin, but who's the COO of NIO? Li Hong.
Li Hong, yeah, he's in Frankfurt.
Yeah, they feel confident that they're going to hit 250,000 units this year. That's more than double of the 122 that they did last year. I think that's reassuring to hear.
I think it'll be very tough, to be honest.
You think so?
Yeah.
The US and Japan are working together to secure and make sure that Japanese OEMs get a piece of the IRA by working together on rare earth metals. And a little bit surprising to me, because it's less than a year in the market, the ET7 is going to get a refresh. So that was pretty surprising.
Like we said, how long did the Li 1 last on the market?
Yeah.
Not very long. And I think ET7 was even shorter.
I have my theories, obviously, but let me ask you, is it a full-size sedan thing or is it a ET7 thing?
No, I think it's an ET7 thing. I think there's a lot of little issues, problems that surfaced. And,
okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, I we'd heard about, our friend Will has one, but he seems to like it a bit. But yeah, it's not good that they would spend a ton of capital to build this platform, and then on top of that, the ET7, and then less than a year later have to dedicate capital and resources to refreshing it, because even in China terms, that's fast to get a new front end or a new rear end or revised interior. Okay. So, and that's about it, man. I am actually I was in New York last weekend, DC this week. For the last 3 days, Lei, I've walked 20,000 steps each day.
What did you do?
DC. So yeah, my kids they're on spring break. And so I'm
sightseeing,
working and vacationing at the same time. It's impossible to do.
Well, tell me about it.
Yeah. It's especially if you want to be present, you know what I mean? Cause I don't know, man, I'm just trying to, when I'm not working, focus on them.
Yeah.
And, because they deserve it.
Yeah.
And so they really enjoy it. It's been beautiful. The weather's a little cold, but it's warmer than Michigan. And it was rainy in New York over the weekend. So that's why I kind of got something a little bit. But, one of the things that what I thought was missing for the kids was understanding U.S. history and American history.
Yeah.
So for them to be able to see this, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and we walked everywhere.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I think now they understand it at a whole different level. And I have to say one thing. There was a gentleman, and this is the craziest story, Lei. I was at the Washington Monument and I was like wrestling with my son. My wallet fell out and I'm walking towards the Lincoln Memorial and I get a phone call. It's a 415 number. And I'm like, okay, it could be a business call because I don't know who this person is. And I answer it and they're like, are you Tu Li? And I generally don't like when people are like, are you Tu Li? Dude, you called me, right? So I'm like, who's this? And he's like, oh yeah, I found Tu Li's wallet. I'm at the Washington. You're not at Washington D.C., are you? I was like, whoa. And I checked my pocket and I was like, he's right. I lost it. And then he's like, I Googled your name and I got your number. And so within 15 minutes we meet and he gives me back the wallet. He's with his son. And I was like, hey, Good Samaritan of the Year award. So there's still a lot of good people in this world in the United States. So thank you, Ryan, for doing that. But yeah, man. And
it's a good story.
And I had that other meeting that I told you about that I thought that was pretty useful, pretty fruitful.
That means you're very famous. You can find your
infamous.
name and number.
Yes, right? So, and I'm good for today.
Yeah, so this weekend, I'll be looking forward to the signals that will come out of the China EV 100 forum, because there will be a lot of government people speaking there and see what kind of direction that basically Q1 is done, right? And whether we will see, so that delay in the China 6B is one thing, but any other stimulus incentives that are expected to come out, maybe we'll know by the end of this weekend. And then the sales come out tomorrow. So we'll talk about those next week.
Should be a fun episode next week.
Yeah. And I don't have anything else.
Me neither. Hey, thanks for joining, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Likewise, and happy April Fools.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Li, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.